Hold. Okay. So, wait. So, secret memos show that the White House debated last year to a greater degree than previously known whether to limit habeas corpus rights for undocumented immigrants. So this article is by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan. Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, who cover the White House, are the authors of the forthcoming book, Regime Change Inside the Imperial Presidency of Donald Trump. June 15th, 2026, updated at 1:14 p.m. ET. Last spring, Will Scharf, an ARC conservative lawyer serving as the White House staff secretary, wrote a secret memo to the chief of staff. Real quick before I get into this, though, this article is so important because it really shows how quick this president is okay with removing the rights of people, and he's the reason that he is even considering removing the rights of immigrants is because he wants to treat them as less than human. Because he knows that if he can treat immigrants as less than human, that he can do anything he wants to them. And that is his plan for bypassing Congress, bypassing the judges, bypassing the courts to treat these people any way he wishes without due process, which is wrong and inhumane, and is also divides American citizens because it creates a lawless atmosphere in America, which endangers all Americans, as was seen with the 2 killings of American citizens by ICE in Minnesota. So last spring, Will Scharf, an ARC conservative, lawyer serving as the White House staff secretary, wrote a secret memo to the chief of staff that reflected growing unease in the West Wing about one of the extreme measures being weighed by Stephen Miller. I was thinking about something else. The powerful advisor driving President Trump's deportation campaign. Dated April 29, 2025, and stamped confidential, the memo was careful and lawyerly, but amounted to a warning against end running the rule of law. The subject line read, "The writ of habeas corpus." Habeas corpus, the centuries-old right to force the government to justify before a judge why it has locked a person up, is enshrined in Article 1 of the Constitution. Mr. Scharf's memo, in its unassuming way, was a blinking red warning light. The second Trump White House was deliberating an explosive new claim of presidential power, the suspension of habeas corpus, of habeas rights for unauthorized immigrants. The suspension of habeas corpus had occurred just a handful of times in U.S. history, and always under the most dire circumstances of war or invasion, yet to a greater degree than previously known. Administration officials, encouraged by Mr. Trump, actively weighed taking that step in the early months of his second term. This time, I was thinking about something else. I'm thinking about another streamer. Another person, and it's not. Anyway, yet to a greater degree than previously known, administration officials encouraged Mr. Trump actively weighed taking that step in the early months of his second term, this time to accelerate the mass deportation of immigrants in the country illegally. Flush with the decisive 2024 election victory, Mr. Trump and some members of his team wanted to test how far the emboldened president's authority could be pushed, setting off previously unreported internal struggles over where the limits should be. The man who outlined his concerns in the memo, Mr. Scharf, was no resistance figure, a trim, balding, Harvard-trained lawyer who had run for office in Missouri. He had bemoaned John McCain as too moderate for the 2008 Republican nomination and believed Mr. Trump had been vindictively prosecuted after his 2020 election loss. He had helped develop the Trump team's legal arguments behind the successful effort to get the Mar-a-Lago classified documents indictment thrown out, as well as the arguments behind the presidential immunity case that prevailed at the Supreme Court. He had embraced the most contentious elements of Mr. Trump's agenda, but was quickly coming up against the limit of what the Constitution in his reading could be made to bear. The Constitution, Mr. Scharf wrote in his memo to Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, permits suspension of habeas corpus only in cases of rebellion or invasion. Courts have almost unfairly held that only Congress can do it. He added, even where Congress has explicitly suspended habeas corpus rights, the Supreme Court has held that some alternative process must be provided to defendants with procedural safeguards akin to a habeas corpus action. It prevents, in effect, governmental actors from detaining, imprisoning, or executing individuals arbitrarily, Mr. Scharf wrote. In April last year, the Supreme Court had allowed the administration to continue its use of the Alien Enemies Act as the basis for deporting Venezuelans who were in the United States illegally. But the justices also ruled that the migrants were entitled to challenge their deportations in court before being expelled. The detainees the court held could file lawsuits citing habeas corpus to challenge the basis for their removal, substantially slowing the administration's deportation drive. Inside the White House, Mr. Miller, Mr. Miller, the influential deputy chief of staff, saw an opening for an idea he had raised previously. What if Mr. Trump simply claimed the power to suspend habeas corpus? Then the locked up immigrants would be blocked from receiving hearings or even from seeking court orders to prevent their removal from the country. This was an opportunity for Mr. Trump not only to speed up deportations, but also to assert vastly expanded power over a legal system that was getting in his way. Suspending habeas corpus was only one of two radical ideas Mr. Miller had been pushing that alarmed Mr. Scharf. The other was invoking the Insurrection Act to deploy the military to enforce the law on American streets at protests, and to enforce the law on American streets as protests grew against deportation sweeps. Mr. Scharf wrote confidential memos to Ms. Wiles on both topics, setting out in a low-key way by taking either step would shatter historical norms and likely precipitate hazardous legal and constitutional battles. A senior administration official speaking on background because the official was not authorized to discuss the matter publicly said for this article that senior staff had requested the memos and that they were seen by relatively few people. The documents reflected alarm among a small group of senior aides. They felt that Mr. Miller's eagerness to test the limits of executive power and to accuse other branches of encroaching on it, and echoing a president who bristled at any constraints, risked steering the administration and the country in a dangerous direction. In the case of the Insurrection Act, Vice President J.D. Vance pushed to invoke it just days after federal agents shot and killed Alex Preddy, a Minnesota critical care nurse who was protesting the administration's immigration policies. Wow. May Alex Preddy rest in peace in the Almighty Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Amen. What happened to Alex Preddy is a crime. It is a tragedy, and it is disgusting what the Trump administration and these Republicans funded, that led, and they funded ICE, to be specific, that led to Alex Preddy's death. May God help Alex Preddy's family. In the Almighty Jesus Christ's name, amen. And may Alex Preddy rest in peace in the Almighty Jesus Christ's name, amen. The details of internal debates over how aggressive Mr. Trump should be in seeking to deport millions of immigrants and crack down on those protesting his policies are drawn from reporting for a forthcoming book, Regime Change, inside the imperial presidency of Donald Trump. In reporting the book, the author spoke with Mr. Trump and conducted more than 1,000 interviews with a wide range of people close to him, including campaign officials, White House staff members, officials serving in government departments and agencies, former aides, donors, lawmakers, friends, and business associates. In a statement provided for this article, Abigail Jackson, a White House spokeswoman, said members of the administration often have conversations about many different lawful options to implement the president's agenda, with the president always being the ultimate decider. A dangerous new line. Mr. Scharf, the White House staff secretary at Mar-a-Lago last year, Al Drago for the New York Times, at the center of the internal White House debates over suspending habeas corpus and invoking the Insurrection Act, were Mr. Miller intent on pushing the limits of the constitutional system, and Mr. Scharf, a process-driven lawyer, little known outside the West Wing. Please, that's in the White House. Yeah, Mr. Miller and Mr. Scharf. As the staff secretary, Mr. Scharf was the final stop for paperwork flowing through the White House before it reached the president's desk. Among other duties, his office processed the executive actions and presidential memorandums behind what became known as the Retribution Agenda. But Mr. Scharf belongs to a small group inside the administration that, while supportive of the president's agenda, was quietly trying to pull him back from the more aggressive moves pushed by Mr. Miller and others, actions that promised Mr. Trump quick results but kept producing costly entanglements in court. Sorry, 1 second. 1 second, hold. Okay, their worry was self-inflicted damage. Weak legal arguments would invite sweeping rulings against the administration, and those rulings would constrain everything that came after. Mr. Scharf was not alone in his concerns about suspending hobbyist rights. David Warrington, the White House counsel, had told colleagues he was skeptical. He was skeptical of some of Mr. Miller's views of executive authority. Some figures in the White House privately called suspending habeas corpus insane. Mr. Miller, according to West Wing officials, had at first tried to charm Mr. Scharf, but soon came to see him as an obstacle. Weeks after the inauguration, he was issuing sharp directives to Mr. Scharf's office about how it should operate. When it came to suspending habeas corpus, one of the most powerful constitutional protections of individual rights, Mr. Miller was in fact encouraging something Mr. Trump had long dreamed of: bypassing judges in deportation cases. Okay. Okay, so all right. So this is incredibly impactful because it really shows the lengths to which Trump went to suspend the rights of immigrants in this country. Okay. Yeah, so it shows how impressive, sorry, not impressive, how to what lengths Trump did to basically treat immigrants like they were not human beings and remove their constitutional rights from them in order to treat them as lesser them so that he can basically do what they want, do what he wants to them, and invoke more lawlessness against them in the streets of America, which only causes more lawlessness to be in the country, which leads to the danger of American citizens, and also leads to false, wrongful deportations, deportations that kill people, and deportations where American citizens get involved and also get killed. And instead of him just listening to the judges and the American government, and the American people in which he serves, he would rather try to find loopholes to go over the heads of the American people instead of following the directives of the American people and the statutes that we have put in place in this government in order to maintain unity, solidarity, and law and order. And when I say law and order, I mean the integrity of the American people. Donald Trump has no integrity, and that's why he has endangered the lives of American citizens in his vengeful campaign for an immigration crackdown.